Hello, my name is Julie, and this is Stamp with Julie Baum. Today, you're going to see the projects that we are making at Stamp Club in April of 2025. Now, Stamp Club is a group of gals that meet monthly in my home. This is a live in-person event, and we create our projects together and enjoy the company of each other. But I also have a group of gals who participate in what I call Stamp Club at Home, where they receive their packet of materials in the mail and then create the projects on their own time in their own home. And that is a fun way for someone who doesn't live nearby to be able to participate in these projects. I have room in both opportunities for you. So if you're interested in either stamping with me live and in person or being part of Stamp Club at Home, do be sure and let me know. The three projects for this month are here. We are making 2 cards with a lot of bee product. And so you'll be seeing, and we will be talking about bee product. And then also this little treat container that would be perfect for Easter or springtime. Of course, you could use it at other times, but we're making a springtime one. All right, we are going to begin with actually the quickest project, and that is the treat container. So I'm going to bring in my Simply Scored, and you can use your Stampin' Trimmer with a scoring blade if you prefer. And I'm going to be making a pink version. This one is green, and I'm going to be making a pink version. So you're going to begin with a piece of Designer Series paper that is 4 by 6 inches. And on the short side, you're going to score at 1 inch. And then on the long side, you're going to score at 1 inch, 2 3/4 inches, 3 3/4 inches, and 5 1/2 inches. All right, I can set this out of the way. I want nice, crisp folds. So I'm going to go ahead and using my bone folder, I'm going to reinforce all of those folds on the score lines that I made. Then we're going to do some simple cutting. So you'll want to have your paper snips handy. And there it is. That is the last one. All right, so use your bone folder, fold all your folds. All right, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm actually going to remove this tiny little rectangle here. So I'm going to snip, and then I'm also going to snip here. Now let me show you something. I would normally snip this and then also make an angle on this piece that's going to be remaining. Well, you can just do that in one step if you want to. So you can just go ahead and make that angle and then remove this little piece. Like so. Then I'll make the other angle on this side. This is going to be my tab that I use to close the little treat container. All right, so we've made that little trim and cut this piece off. Now I'm going to take my scissors and trim straight up each of the remaining lines that I scored and stopping at that score mark. So you can see there that I have freed up those 4 little pieces. Now this step is optional, but I do think that it helps it to go together a little bit smoother and with less bulk. So I'm going to take those 2 rectangle pieces and fold them out of the way. You can see I have 2 little squares left. On each of those squares, I'm going to take a tiny little wedge cut out of it. This one was a little sloppy. There we go. And do the same thing here. What that does is it helps the box, this is going to be the bottom of the box, to have a little bit less bulk in it when you go to fold all the tabs in. And it really makes it come together nicely. All right, I'm going to take my tear and tape adhesive and I'm going to put a strip here on that tab that we created. And I do like to pull it against my small metal ruler to get a nice clean tear. I have a link for some of these extra tools that I like to use in my crafting. Links for those are below each of my videos in the description box. Okay, now this part is really fun, and I'm never not fascinated by how well it works. This is one of those templates that you can just close the flap. Okay, let me go a little slower. This is where my sticky piece is. I need it to close up the project like this, but this can feel very awkward. So you don't need to hold it in air and try to line up any strange edges. All you're going to do is leave this part folded. Here's my sticky part, and I'm going to close this right on top of it, and it meets exactly where it is intended. And there is the shape of my treat holder. All right, we're going to close up the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold in those 2 little tabs that we trimmed. Then you're going to have 2 more, and these are the ones that I'm going to put my adhesive on. And so I'm going to open those up and put some tear and tape on the back side of each of those tabs. So I'm going to do a piece here and zoop. I'm searching for the end. There it is. And a piece here. Now this part is a little fussy. You don't have to worry about it if you don't want to. You might want to determine where that seam is. I consider where the seam is to be the back of my project. So I want the front of the project to have the last tab that closes so that it's nice and smooth and I don't have a seam here. Okay, so if that makes sense, here is my back seam, and so that is the piece, the tab that is going to go down first. If you don't want to worry about where that seam is, you don't have to. Just close up your flaps and don't worry about it. Okay, so that one is shut. And I'll do this one. And then what I'm going to do is place the rounded edge of my bone folder down inside and just press, because you've got that tape in there and it's really hard to fit your finger down in there to press it and make sure that everything has sealed up. Okay, so that's done. Now, here's the front of my project. All I'm going to do is take my index fingers and hold them here on the sides, and I'm going to do just a gentle squeeze and press the front and the back together. It doesn't require any score lines to do that. You just are going to do it with your fingers, and you get this kind of cute little pleated edge when you do that. All right, now I'm going to set this aside. If you want to, you can use a small paper clip or a binding clip or something to just kind of hold that shut. That might come in handy when we go to put our ribbon on, but you can just hold that shut and set it aside. All right, now I have a white scrap and I have my heartfelt hexagon punch. And I'm going to go ahead and create my shape first. Sometimes I will encourage you to do your stamping before you punch or die cut, but in this instance, it doesn't matter if your punch is first, and now you've established the shape that you have to stamp on. All right, what I'm going to do is grab some stamps. This is from actually a retired stamp set called Easter Bunny, but I thought that it was perfect for this project. And the size and the look, everything seemed just right. So, beginning with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, I am going to stamp this little image and put it on my hexagon tag that I'm creating. Now, if you are participating in Stamp Club at home, you will be substituting whatever you have for this portion. This is what I chose to stamp on here. And guests who are at Stamp Club, my VIPs and guests, will use the same products that I'm using. But when you're stamping from home, obviously you can't use my things. You might have to substitute something that you have at home. All right, so there's my little spray of flowers. And then with Bubble Bath ink, I'll stamp the words right below it. That was almost upside down. Okay, we're going to go back and add some color to those little flowers and leaves. So I've chosen some Stampin' blends. And the colors that I'm going to use are Bubble Bath. That's what I'm starting with. And this one is light, although you could use the light or the dark. I'm not going to get super fancy on my coloring today. I'm not even going to add like the dark that sometimes I would do right now to add shading. I'm just going to color in the lines like a coloring book. All right, I'm going to use some Daffodil Delight on this next flower. And I'm going to leave the center white. You can fill it in if you want. And you'll be using your Stampin' blends if you're stamping at home, or whatever coloring method that you have and that you prefer. All right, I have Balmy Blue next. And I'll color this flower over here. I'm going to do the whole thing, even the middle, with that blue. I want that pop of blue over there. And my last flower, I'm going to use Light Highland Heather. And then as I'm finishing coloring this last flower, I do remember that I'm going to put some pink on that little spray at the end. They could be buds. I mean, they could just be like a natural color. It could just be a pick of some sort. But I wanted to add a little bit more pink. And so I'm going to generously color the ends of that, even outside the lines. So it gives me that little pop of pink on the end. All right, the only thing I did different with the leaves is I did go ahead with lemon lime twist, the light one. Okay, this is lemon lime twist on my leaves. And then I am going to add some shading on those. That is entirely optional and it's up to you. All right, so now I have dark Old Olive. And I'm just going to quickly do the centers where the artist who created this image already gave us some little lines. I'm just going over them. And then I'll finish this last little leaf stem over there. All right, that's the coloring. It's done very, very quickly. Okay, let's come back to our treat container and we're going to wrap some ribbon around it. You can use something that you have. On my green version, I did use a green ribbon. Right now, I'm going to use a pink ribbon. Honestly, the ribbon comes and goes so quickly, I often have retired ribbon. So this is old ribbon, but it is a soft pink. I don't think that it's Bubble Bath. It's probably Pretty in Pink, or maybe even, remember a long time ago, Pink Pirouette? It could be. But it's pink and it looks fine, and I have 10 inches of it. And I'm going to wrap it around the project like so. Let me move this out of the way so you can see what I've done. All right, so just from the front to the back, making a nice loop all the way around. Once again, I'm just going to hold that for a moment while I grab my linen thread. I have 10 inches of linen thread. And this is what I'm going to use to secure this ribbon. I'm going to tie it around it. And if you are stamping with a friend right now, you are so lucky because it's really helpful to have a friend hold this while you're tying it. If you are stamping by yourself, you're going to have to use all of your fingers. You might have to grab your reverse tweezers, something to help you tie this. I'm going to try to do it by myself on camera. The trick is getting it tight. You need this part to be very tight. And I almost have it. And at that point, I tie a knot because I don't want this to slip. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that knot nice and tight. And as you can see, it is holding my ribbon. I'm going to trim that up. Now, a lot of you make the projects that we do in Stamp Club just as samples. You don't intend to really use them. And so just as I've done, this is done, but there's no treats in it. If you want to put your treats in it and actually use it, you're going to do that before you close your ribbon up, all right? So what we used this time are some little Hershey Kisses with the foil wrappers for Easter. I put 3 of those inside mine. And Hershey Kisses, some little jelly beans, a number of things will fit in there. So you can put your treats inside if you're actually going to use this and give it to someone, and then complete your bow. So I've got my ribbon, I have my linen thread tied in a knot. I'm going to go ahead and create a bow. That's why I gave you 10 inches of the linen thread. If we were just tying a knot, you wouldn't have needed that much. But I wanted a nice big loopy bow. Some ribbons fray worse than others. This one frays quite a lot. All right, and now all we're going to do is take our cute little stamped piece and attach it to the front. I recommend that you do this with a couple of dimensionals. So I'll do one at the top and one at the bottom. That will secure it just fine. And once you've positioned it and placed it on there, you do want to give it a good squeeze. I'm even going to stick my finger kind of down inside here and pinch that dimensional so it's really grabbing onto the treat container. And this bottom one as well. And there you have it. Here is the pink version. And I'll bring in the green one so you can see that one more time. Here is the green version. And that is project 1. All right, moving along, the next one I'm going to show you is this adorable little matchbook style card. So it opens and closes like this, like a book of matches. And we are adding a cute little pop-up element on the inside. So you can see that. Super cute. Let's create. So for this project, you're going to be starting with a piece of Pool Party cardstock. And in case I forget to give you any of the measurements as we're going along, I will put all the measurements in the description box below this video. So you can always go back and refer there. All right. I believe this piece is 3 3/4 by 9 3/4. And what we're going to do is we're going to score this piece at 5 1/4 inches, which is not in half. Okay, yes, you can see it's beginning at 9 3/4 inches long to begin with. We are not scoring it in half. We're going to score it at 5 1/4, which is going to give us a shorter side and a longer side. Okay, I also have a piece of white cardstock. This piece is 3 1/2 by 9 1/4, and this piece is getting scored at 5 inches, which is once again not in half. So I have a short side and a longer side. I have another piece, and we might as well go ahead and score it since I've got it out. This piece of Pool Party is 4¼ inches by 2½ inches. And I will be scoring it down the middle on the short side at 1¼ inches. That one is the middle, so that's equal when you fold it. All right, well, we're done with our scoring. We are going to need our trimmer because we're going to do some special little cuts in this piece to create our pop-up. So you will want to grab your Stampin' trimmer, even if you didn't already use it for scoring. All right, one thing to point out at this point is in addition to all of the measurements that are very clear to see and read on the base of the trimmer, there are also measurements here along this arm that comes up and down to hold your paper in place while you're cutting. What I have done on mine is I've placed a long piece of tear and tape on mine without removing the backing. It just lives on there to make these numbers easier to see. They now have a white background, as you can see on mine, and it makes all of those measurements so much easier to see. We're going to need to see the 3/4 inch marking. Okay, you have your white piece. You've already scored and folded it. Now we're going to take the folded edge and put it up here at the stopping point, the fence or the stopper of your trimmer, and we want the left edge at the 1½ inch mark. All right, so folded edge of my cardstock is at the top and my left edge is at 1½. Now I'm going to get my scoring blade out of the way. I want to use my cutting blade. I'm going to make a cut coming down into that cardstock, and I'm going to cut all the way until I hit the 3/4 inch mark here on the side ruler. And I can see that because on this piece there's a little notch right there. So as soon as the notch lines up with the 3/4 inch line, I stop and then go back up. This is the cut that I just made. All right, keep your paper in there. You don't have to take it out. I just took mine out to show you the first cut. So we did that with the left edge at 1½. Now you're going to slide it to the left, so your left edge is now at 2 inches. And we're going to make a second small slit. You're going to bring the cutting blade down through both layers of cardstock, and you're going to stop when that little edge gets to the 3/4 inch mark. And you will be able to see it a lot easier than I am, because I don't want to stick my head over here and get all up in it, but you'll be able to see what you're doing. Now, you can take your paper out at this point, but we're not finished. Okay, you can see my 2 slits that I just made. Now, I want this piece to fold very freely. So I'm going to now turn this, put it back into my trimmer. And now this folded edge is going to be at the 3/4 inch mark. Okay, you can see that. Here's the 1 going this way towards 2, 3, 4. I'm at the 3/4 inch mark here. I've closed the arm. My cutting blade is completely out of the way. And what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to lift mine up and bring my scoring blade down. Bring your scoring blade down to somewhere in here between the 1 and the 2. Okay, just so it's out of the way. Now, what you're going to do is you're actually going to press the scoring blade down, and you're going to do this between 1½ and 2 only. So I'm going back and forth between 1½ and 2, 1½ and 2, 1½ and 2, maybe 3 or 4 times. Then when you take it out, you will have that beautiful little score line there, which allows this piece to fold freely and super, super nice and straight. All right. If you had decided to not mess with making that score line, you can force this fold to work, but then this crease is not as clean and crisp, and I think that that's kind of important. Okay, that's as hard as it gets. Let's move our trimmer out of the way and begin putting the card together. All right, I can open this now and let me get your orientation correct. The longer piece should be at the top and the shorter piece at the bottom. That is the correct way that this is going to end up. Then you can just poke your little pop-up part through and see how that is going to sit. All right. Now let's bring in our pool party piece, also with the long edge at the top, the shorter edge at the bottom, and you can line this up sitting in the crease and you'll see how it's going to go once we're ready to glue it, but do not glue yet. Okay, we're going to do our stamping on this portion because if we were to make a mistake, we would only be out this piece. We don't want to put this all together, maybe have a mistake and have to throw the whole thing out and begin again. So don't glue it to your cardstock base yet. Let's work on this white piece. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is add some stems. Okay, this is where we're talking about all of the bee products. So I am using 2 different stems for some greenery, and I am using a flower. Where's my flower? All right, hold on. I have a lot going on here and I'm looking for the flower. We're going to use a heart as well. There it is. All right, some hearts and a flower. These stamps are all from Be My Valentine. This was the first bee-themed stamp set that came out. This one is about a year old, all right? There's the hearts that we're using, the 2 stems, and this flower, okay? So we're using those from Be My Valentine. But see, we're also using products from Meant to Be, another bee-themed set. But all of these stamps right now are from Be My Valentine. I'm gonna use Old Olive. And I'm going to stamp a stem that goes off to the right. And a stem that goes off to the left. I'm also going to get my Stampin' Pierce mat out. I really do like to use it, and sometimes I forget to grab it. All right, then I have Petunia Pop ink. And what I'm going to do with this is stamp my first flower. And you can do it on the right or the left. Full strength ink right from the ink pad. And then without re-inking, I'm going to do my second stem so that I end up with a light flower and a dark flower with 1 ink pad. You can make them both dark if you want, but otherwise you can do a dark and then essentially that one is stamped off because we stamped it and you've got your lighter version. All right, we're going to keep going with these stamps, but we need an extra little piece that is part of our pop-up. So I'm going to take a piece of white. Okay, I've already cut this out, so I'm going to show you how to get this. I had a white scrap. And I'm using dies that coordinate with Meant to Be. Okay, this is the newest addition to the bee-themed products. So Meant to Be is available as a bundle with some dies, and one of the most exciting parts about these dies are these multi-sized hexagons they're already so much fun to use. So I am using the smallest one right now. Later, we're going to use a larger one, but I have the smallest one and I cut my hexagon shape out with that. We're going to do some stamping right onto that little shape. And this time, my left stem, I'm going to go from the middle, about the middle, maybe even slightly left of middle, and let it go up that way. And my second stem, real close to it. They can even overlap a little bit. And that one is arching to the left. Then we're going to continue to decorate this. The same method that I used with my flower, I'm going to do a second time. So I'm going to do a dark flower straight from Petunia Pop, and then without re-inking, a lighter version on there. If you are participating in Stamp Club at home and you are substituting your stamps, you basically just want to create a simple little background. We're going to add a bee onto this in a moment, but you just want to maybe add some grass or some leaves and some flowers just to give it a little bit of decoration. Okay, I also want to add some hearts. And for the hearts, I'm going to pull in Pool Party, which is the same color as our card base, if you recall. So I will place a Pool Party heart down here, and then the little trio of hearts up there. Oh, that had a little line on it. Okay, this piece is almost finished, but we do need our bee. All right, I have a scrap of white cardstock and my Daffodil Delight ink pad, and also a black ink pad. There's my Memento Black. I'm going to create the bee on this little scrap. So I like to start with the oval. Here, let's move this out of the way. Move this out of the way. So I'm going to be creating the baby bee. But let's talk about the bees for just a minute because I think it can be a little confusing. I'm going to try to give you something that helps clear things up. This was the first set of bee-themed stamps that came out, called Be My Valentine, and I think these came out in the spring of 2024. There's a bee in here, and this bee coordinates with the Bee Builder Punch. Okay, then a recently released bee-themed product is this one, Meant to Be, and it's available as a bundle, and it has dies. So instead of a punch, it has a whole bunch of dies. All right, now there are 3 different sized bees between the 2 sets. So this newer set, Meant to Be, has what I'm going to refer to as the Papa Bee and the Baby Bee. And the other set, Be My Valentine, has the mama-sized bee. All right, so there's 3 sizes of bees between the 2 sets. Papa and Baby are in this one, and Mama Bee is in that one. For this card, we're making a baby bee. All right, so I have the oval and my Daffodil Delight ink. And then I'm going to add the little bee stripes. And when I line up my bee stripes, I look down through the stamp and I find the stinger, the little white gap between the back of the bee and the stinger should be yellow. So I'm looking down through here and lining up my stinger so it's right up against the yellow oval. Like so. All right, now we need to add a little face, and so I have chosen, I chose the face from, let me see which set I got this from. Where's my little eyeballs? See, there's some faces in each one, and they are similar. The smaller eyes. Okay, it's either this smiley face or this smiley face. I think it's this one. I think it's meant to be. They're almost identical, but the eyeballs are a tiny bit larger. I think this is the smaller one. Okay, there's our eyes. Now this is gonna get cut out, and this is part of meant to be, which has coordinating dies. So we're die cutting this bee. So I'm going to bring in my mini machine because it seems to fit a little better when I have so much going on here. And my mini bead die. All right, we're going to cut this out. Like so, okay? There's our mini bee. Then the other parts that we need to put our bee together include the little wings and the antenna. So let's see here. I did those ahead of time just to save a little bit of time while I'm filming, but I will show you how to get these pieces. So there are 2 different sets of dies that coordinate with meant to be that cut out these wings, and this is the smaller of the 2 sets of wings. You'll see the larger one later when we do the other card. All right, so I cut out the wings with Pool Party cardstock, and then there's a little tiny die that looks like that. Is that hard to see? And that cuts out the antenna, and I did that with black cardstock. All right, so let's put our little bee together. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue. Oh, and you know what is very cute? You don't have to do this part if you don't want to, but what is very cute is adding some Wink of Stella to these bee wings. So I am going to do that at this point. And Wink of Stella gives you a soft little shimmer. So it's kind of like glitter, but it's not loose. It's not going to flake off. It's just a shimmer. All right, and then a couple tiny little dots of my glue. And put my bee into place. So we glue the wings on the bee. Cute. And then you can decide if you think that the antenna should come from behind like the wings did. I kind of think they need to be right here on the top of the bee's head. So that's where I'm going to put them. You can decide. So a tiny little dab. Do I have any putty in here? I don't know if I need to refill that. All right, stick that right there. The little antenna, cute. Okay, let's bring back in our stamped piece that we have right here. Our bee is going to get added to this piece, and we kind of want the little bee like hanging off a little bit. Okay, so you don't have to stick it right on there. You want him to be floating a little bit off to the side like that. So it hangs off the edge of the shape. So I'm going to add that. I almost want more hearts up there, but I'm not going to do it. You can add more if you want. All right, this is our piece that is actually going to be the pop-up portion of our matchbook card with a pop-up. So let's take this and bring in our pieces that we have so far. Okay, here's our card base, the white piece that we prepared and stamped. We've got our little pop-up piece. Now, this is a piece that we haven't talked about. This piece, when we put the card together, is going to be at the top like this. All right, so what I prefer to do at this stage is do like a dry fit. So I'm not using any glue, but I'm going to take this, lay it right into the card base where it is going to go here in a little bit, and hold this piece on the top folded like that, where it's going to go. And this is going to determine where I do my stamping on the inside of the card. All right, so I'm using the stamp that says Q is a B, and it is from Meant to Be. And I'm using Pool Party ink. Now, if you want to, at this point, you can just make like a little pencil mark here, and then you're not having to hold it all. Then you'll know where to stamp. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to hold it here. It's not hard, and it's not in my way. All right. I've got my, I'm going to make sure that I inked that up. Okay. Okay, holding my dry fit pieces in place. Stamp this up high, but not under that flap, this flap, like so. Okay, that is now in place, and we can start to do some of the attaching. So this part is completely done, so I'm not afraid to go ahead and attach it. I'm going to put glue on the tall part first. And by lining up my fold with this fold, I'm going to settle it right into place on the card, fold to fold, and then press this portion down. So now that is in place. Then I'm just going to fold this up like that and put my adhesive here. And let that piece attach to the card base. All right, so the whole inside is now attached to the card base, like so. All right, now we can take this piece. I'm going to flip this over and put my adhesive at the top. This is the long piece of our card base. Putting my adhesive there. And I'm just going to center it and sandwich it into this. All right, this closes like that, and this flap comes down like that. That's how it's going to look. We're going to decorate the front, and we're going to put the pop-up on the inside. Okay, but all the mechanics of the card are done at this point. Let's go ahead and put our papers on. You have a large piece of DSP, super cute pattern. What they did with the pattern, with the paper, is there was a Be Mine paper, and it was all of these identical prints, but in different colors. It was in red, yellow, black, and white, which you're going to see on our last card today. And then what they did when Meant to Be was released is they created the exact same paper, all the same designs, but changed up the colors to be the Pool Party, the Petunia Pop, the yellow. Oh my gosh, it's just so cute. All right, now that's on there. We have a little flap here. That's where your smaller piece of designer series paper is going to go. And we are in the home stretch of this second project. All right, that is in place. All we need to do is put our pop-up in there. I had a smudge I needed to erase. All right, So you're going to take this little part that you've already created and decorated, and this is where it's going to get attached to the front of that little pop-up portion that we created. What I think is the best way to do this is to use tear and tape, and I'm going to use two very, very small pieces to do that. So I've got my tape, like itty bitty pieces. Okay, what I want it to do is to be about, this is a 1/2 inch here, and I want it to fit inside that 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put a piece there. So I guess you could say that your piece of tear and tape needs to be just less than 1/2 inch, because you don't want it hanging off at all. All right, so right here I have my two pieces of tear and tape, and I am going to press them down. All right, here we go. This piece, here's our dry fit. This piece is going to go on here. And because I let my little bee stick out a teeny bit to the right, I'm going to actually position this a tiny bit left on this little pop-up portion. Not exactly centered. I just want a tiny little, just a smidge to the left, so that this whole image appears to be centered. All right, let's do that now. We can remove the backing of our tape. And position this. I'm just tucking my finger in there to press it down a little bit, just to hold it for a second. And then I'm just going to close it and push it to make sure that that adhesive is really sticking to my little pop-up decorated piece. Like so. All right, and then you can see that as the card opens, you have your adorable little pop-up portion. All right, let's figure out how to close this top, because we want it to stay shut so that this does indeed pull open like a book of matches. So what I'm going to do is flip this to the back. I'm going to take a piece of tear and tape, and I only need it to be about 1 inch long, maybe even less. And I'm going to place it right here in the middle of this flap, the back of the flap. Okay, the tear and tape is 1/4 inch wide. So we want to make sure that we're using ribbon that is 1/4 inch wide or wider, because then this tape is going to be completely covered by ribbon, which is what we want. You can also skip this step, but I think it's really hard to tie your ribbon around it when it's sliding around. So by adding this little anchor, it's going to make it much easier. So this is ready for my ribbon. Let's grab the ribbon. I'm going to take my piece. This is 14 inches. I'm going to put the cut ends together and then just finger press the middle, the center, just so there's a little indication of where the middle is, like that. And I'm going to lay that middle piece right onto my sticky strip. Okay, so now the ribbon is anchored there. It's not sticky at all because the ribbon completely covers the tear and tape. And I'm going to flip this to the front and simply tie a knot. You could definitely tie a bow, and that would be really cute. Some of us don't prefer to tie bows, plus you would need that much more ribbon if you were making loops with beautiful tails. So by doing a 14-inch length, you can just barely get your knot on there and have it look nice. Again, using your reverse tweezers, or a friend to hold this for you would be really helpful. I might have to use my tweezers because it's coming loose. Okay, here we go. Pull it tight, grab the tweezers, stick them on there to hold that, and then complete the knot. Why struggle when we don't have to, right? All right, and then I'm going to pull this really quite snug, go ahead and remove my tweezers and finish tightening it up. It just comes out so beautifully. It's so stinking cute. I'm gonna trim these tails just a teeny bit. I kind of want to leave them long, but trim them up a little, make them nice and even. And there we have our second project, which is this cute matchbook card with a pop-up. Now we combined two things there because you could definitely do a pop-up inside any card and you could do a matchbook that doesn't have a pop-up, but we really combined all of that to make a spectacular card. I have done this in an alternate version and that one looks like this. So this one is with an old olive base and just one of the different prints here. The inside is all still the same. All right, we're ready for project number 3. We're sticking with the bee theme. We're going to use some of the similar products, some different ones. And in your packet, if you're doing Stamp Club at home, it's your final little grouping of products. All right, we are starting with a Sweet Sorbet card base, and that's a little bit interesting because Sweet Sorbet is a retired color, but I had a lot of Sweet Sorbet left, and now we are using the paper that has since retired. This is the paper that came out with Be My Valentine. And so as I mentioned, all of the prints are exactly the same. They're just done in different colors. This red is Sweet Sorbet. That's why I chose to use up some of my retired cardstock in Sweet Sorbet. But if you have this paper left over and you don't have Sweet Sorbet, just use Real Red. It works just great. You can use Real Red ink and Real Red cardstock, and this will be beautiful. All right, this is a Z fold card, so we are doing another fun fold. You have your starting piece, which is 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and we're going to make 2 creases on this. So we're going to make 2 score lines. One is at 2 3/4 inches, and one is at 5 1/2 inches, which is kind of handy because in our other project, in our Easter treat, we used 2 3/4 and we used the 5 1/2. So I didn't even have to change my markers. All right, 2 3/4, 5 1/2, that is going to give us our Z fold. This is going to go in and this one's going to come out. Let's reinforce our folds. And let's go ahead and do some of the easy parts of this first. Let's glue our papers on. So this adorable print is going to go here. It is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And it fits neatly, nice and centered on that back panel with a little red border all the way around it. Okay, that's done. Then close your Z fold and your second piece of designer series paper is going to go here on the front. Let's put that up on. For this card, we are going back to the meant to be coordinating dies. It's a large set of dies. I showed you them previously. I'll pull them out again, including all kinds of little goodies, some word cutouts, hearts, but these hexagons are fantastic. We used the smallest one on the matchbook card, and now we're using this one, which either way you count it, it's the third one. So it's the third from the smallest or the third from the largest. That's the one that we used, and we did a white and a black cutout. Okay, so we've got those. Now, I also have a scrap of yellow. This is for some bees that we're going to make. I have a scrap of petal pink. In this paper is actually a teeny bit of petal pink. And so you kind of don't notice it until you do, and then you realize that it's there. We're going to make our wings out of petal pink. So let's do our bees and wings. All right, we're going to use all 3 bee sizes. So we are going to be stamping a baby bee, a mama bee, and a papa bee, and wings that go with them. Now, in this instance, I'm using yellow cardstock, so I am not stamping the yellow oval on any of the 3 bees. I'm just going to stamp the stripes to create the bees right on the yellow cardstock. I really like the way the bee looks stamped on white like we did on the other card. It just looks crisp and, I don't know, bright. But stamping the black stripes onto the yellow cardstock is a very good alternative method. All right, black ink. And I need all of my bee stripe sizes. So I have the papa stripes, the mama stripes, and the baby stripes. Remember, papa and baby are from Meant to Be. The mama bee is from Be My Valentine. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is the papa. I'm going to stamp him at one end. Again, this is going to get die cut. And I'm going to stamp my baby next, which is also going to get die cut. I'm going to leave some space because remember, this has to make like the front of the bee. You don't want it too close. So leave some space. And then I'm going to take my mama and stamp the mama on this end because I'm going to need to punch her out. All right, so there's our 3 bee sizes. Let's go ahead and cut those out because it's much easier to work with them as bees instead of just a set of stripes on the paper. We're going to need the black when we add their faces. Let's bring that small Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine back in to do our die cutting. I don't know if this scrap is too wide. Is this going to fit? Yeah, it's going to fit. Okay. All right, so on here, I'm going to do 2 at once. So I'm going to place the Papa Bee die on here. In this instance, I am going to tape my dies down because I don't want them to slide, and I've got 2 going on at once. So that increases the chance of something moving around, and then I won't be happy with it. So I'm going to line up the stinger, check the sides of the oval, and I'm going to tape that into place. And then I'm going to get baby bee die, position the stinger, check out the oval, and tape that into place. Okay, that's going to get run through and cut out. I have a fuzz stuck to my tape that I'm trying to get out before I do it. Okay. Make sure my dies didn't move. Okay, here we go. We'll need that one more time. All right, now I used the tape to hold my dies in place. It is low tack masking tape or artist tape, so it's not supposed to be super, super sticky. However, I have learned that when you use it and run something through a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, that really presses that tape down, and so it can make it stick to your cardstock. You want to be very careful as you're removing your tape so you don't tear your cardstock. So I'm going slowly till I'm free. Okay, there we go. There's our baby bee. And same thing with Papa. I'm going to be really careful I don't want to tear my yellow cardstock on the bee. There we go. And there's the papa. All right, Mama Bee does not have a die. She came from Be My Valentine, which has the Bee Builder Punch. So now I'm going to bring that punch in, and I'm going to punch her out, and I can tell that I should just trim this down a little bit. All right, line this up, look at the stinger, look at the sides, and punch. And now we have our mama. So this is kind of fun that we did it this way, because now you can actually see all the bees side by side. There's baby bee, mama bee, and papa bee. Now our bees are going to need wings for this card. So I'm going to be stamping my wings on the Petal Pink cardstock. I'm using my red ink. I think that ends up being a good look on this. And let me show you how we're going to do that. All right, in the Mint to Be stamp set and dies, you have two different sizes of wings. So there's the one that goes with the papa bee and the one that goes with the baby bee. I've just mounted them both on the same block so that I can stamp quickly and do it in one step. So let's do that. Again, I'm using Sweet Sorbet, but Real Red is a really good alternative. I think I'll have room if I go this way. These are going to get die cut. Then there are these wings, and these are from Be My Valentine. These wings are a little bit different. They have a solid inside, where this does not have a solid inside. We're going to use all the wings. Okay, back to our die cutting. Here we go. I have the small die here. I need to reach for the large wing die. Since I had to get up and stretch for those, here's those other two hexagons. There's the third size down, and here is the smallest one that we've used today. Okay, I'm going to get these into place, and I'm going to tape them so they don't move around. You can put the little solid metal part in the center, and then look at the outside shape of the wing to determine right where the die should rest. Tape that into place. And same thing with this one. Get the middle lined up, check the outside edge of the wings, and stick that into place. Let's die cut. I think we're done die cutting, so I'm going to set that completely out of the way. Give us a little more space here to work. Once again, I'm going to be careful removing my tape. And then look how cute these wings are when they pop out. Oh my goodness, so cute. And let's do this one. I will mention that the card that we're making right now was cased. I did see another crafter make a very similar card using the other paper, the papers with the Petunia Pop and the pool party. And so I basically took her idea and switched it up a little bit. There's our wings For these, we're going to go back to our punch. And as I mentioned, or I may not have mentioned, this big heart in the punch is the piece that will punch those wings out. So it can punch out a heart shape, or if you've stamped these wings, you end up with your wing shape. All right, let's put our bees together and also give them some faces. Now, the way that the card is going to go, my Papa Bee is going to be flying that way. My Mama Bee is also going to be flying in that direction. And my Baby Bee, I'm going to turn around, is going to be flying in this direction. So let's use some of the other faces that come with the stamp sets. So I have the winky face. We'll have the Papa with a wink. And on the Mama, let's just do a smile. And this is the one with the little bit larger eyeballs, which, if I'm still looking at it, I think the larger eyeballs are in Be My Valentine, and the smaller eyeballs are in Meant to Be. All right, so here's my Mama Bee. And then how about these super happy little squinty eyes for our Baby Bee? Look how cute. They just come alive once you put their little faces on. All right, a little bit of glue on these wings. Let's see if I can get my silicone craft sheet out here again. You guys would laugh when I'm crafting while I'm recording. I'm like super messy, and I don't tend to be a messy crafter. I like things really neat, but I'm trying to move fast, so I'm just shoving stuff left and right. Oh, and then I clean it all up afterwards. All right, we have our Mama Bee wings. We'll attach those to her. And on this card, I did not take the time to do antenna. So if you wanted to add antenna, you totally could die cut those out and add them. There's Mama. Here's the Papa Bee. You could definitely say small, medium, and large, but I like giving them names like Mama and Papa and Baby Bee. All right, and then here's Baby Bee. It's kind of a nice set of wings for Baby. Maybe Baby has to grow into them a little bit. Okay, that was a lot, but we've got all of our bees created. Now, what I did is I took some white cardstock, just a tiny little scrap, and I used the Papa Bee die and just cut out a piece like this. This is going to be a word bubble. So let's stamp on here. Now, I didn't really have any words from the two sets that I wanted on my word bubble, so I did grab the Hello stamp from Simply Said. All right, that's what I'm using. If you're doing Stamp Club at home, just find a small sentiment, one that says just a note or hello or whatever you want it to say. And that is going to go on our speech bubble. And I'll stick with my red ink to do this. All right, there's another element that is complete. Okay, we're still going to need the red ink. We're going to do some stamping on the white large hexagon, okay, that we created. And To do that, this is kind of fun too. This is another technique for you to be learning as you go along. This is going to go this orientation. So the stamp that we're using is this one. This is from Be My Valentine, and it says, "You're as sweet as honey." Now it's really long. It actually would fit on here, but instead of having it be that way, I'm going to show you a trick and how we're going to cut this into two. Now, let me tell you, some crafters actually cut their stamp, which I don't argue with. That's totally fine if you want to do that. You could cut this with scissors right between sweet and as, and make two different stamps out of it. In my case, I didn't want to cut my stamp, and so I'm going to do a trick with a Post-it note. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that your stamp is very, very, very clean. So I've already scrubbed it with my Simply Chamois. It's a little bit hard on photopolymer because of the red ink that tends to stain it. So to make sure that it's very, very clean, I'm also just grabbing one of my little alcohol wipes. Now, let me let you know, you don't ever want to use alcohol wipes on your red rubber stamps. It will dry out the rubber, but it does not harm the photopolymer. So I'm cleaning this to make sure it's really, really clear of any ink. And you can see that there was a teeny bit of residue on there. I'm going to set that aside. We're going to use it again. All right, I'm taking a little Post-it note, and the first thing that I'm going to do is cover up the words "as honey." So I'm sticking my Post-it right on the stamp and covering up "as honey." Now I'm going to ink my stamp with my red ink. I'm going to peel this off, and I'm going to stamp "You're as sweet." And I'm just centering it onto my shape in the place that I want it. Ah, look how adorable. Okay, comes out super cute when you do this. Now I'm going to clean my stamp, first with my chamois that's wet with plain water. Then I'm going to extra clean it with my alcohol pad because I don't want any residual ink on this, or it's going to show up on my white cardstock. All right, so that is clean. Let it dry for a moment. Now I want to put my Post-it over "You're as sweet." So I'm going to position my Post-it right here. Only "as honey" is sticking out. This part won't matter because I'm going to be really careful on the ink pad to not get any ink on that. So you can see that I'm going to only ink "as honey." And maybe a little bit is going onto my Post-it. That's totally fine. Remove that. And now we can stamp "as honey" centered underneath the first line of text. And there we have it. Now, had there been any residual ink at all left on that stamp, it would have showed up here and you would have been frustrated. So again, if you're doing this method of separating portions of your stamp to stamp them individually, make sure that the part you've already used is really, 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 really clean before you switch it to the next part. All right, that's done. Lots of technical stuff, super fun. Let's grab Lemon Lolly, and just for the fun of it, put some honeycomb on this. Let me get a scratch pad, scratch paper. I'm going to put some honeycomb at the top and some honeycomb over here and a little bit over here, like so. You could add as much or as little as you want, but I think that's a good amount. Then we're going to take our Mama Bee and add her to the card. She's going to go flat right onto this little portion that we've been working on. And you do, on this instance, want her to be inside the shape, not hanging off of it. All right, let's switch to the black hexagon. It's also going to go in this same orientation. We're going to attach baby B, and baby B is going to be kind of at the bottom of this shape. And baby B can hang off a teeny bit if you want. If you want him to, him or her. You know, this piece could go on the card first before we add our bees, if that gives you a little bit better visual of where you're headed. So let's go ahead and put this on. So one option is to decorate this whole piece and then attach it. Option 2 is to go ahead and attach this and then do the decorating. So let's do that. I think it will give us a better feel of where our bees belong. So this is going to attach with this top point and this bottom point lined up on our red fold here. So we only want glue on this side of the hexagon, which is this side. Okay, you don't want any past midline. There we go, point and point at the red. And this side has the glue, this side has no adhesive because you don't want to glue your card shut. All right, this is helping. I think that gives you a little better visual of where this is going. All right, we've got baby B on there. Now, let's figure out where Papa B is going to go, but we're not going to glue Papa yet. Okay, somewhere like that. And the speech bubble is coming from Papa. So now that we know where we're going, we're going to put some little embellishments here. Let's go ahead and attach our word bubble. And then we're going to attach our B. Now, if you want to, you can use the mini wobble that was included in your packet. If you don't want to use the wobble, then you can use whatever adhesive you want to go ahead and glue this flat. If you are using a wobble, they look like this. These are mini wobbles because they do come in a variety of sizes. And I have found that the ones that are called mini are the size that I like to use. There is adhesive on this side, like a backing, and also on this side. So what I typically do is I peel the backing off of this and attach it to my element. And it can be a little tricky to get it started. There we go. All right, so you can see that that backing pulls off, and then I can stick this right to the back of my bee. Then I'm going to remove this backing. Like so. Oh, it's coming off in 2 parts. And actually, I think there's a 3rd part. All right. There's that. And then this center part actually has a backing on it too. So if you can use take your pick tool and get it up and off of that, then you'll have the most sticky area possible. There we go. See that little circle peels off of it. Now we can attach Papa B with the wobble to the front of the card. And not only is it adorable, but it has the wobble element, which I just think is over the top cute. Okay, we need to add some embellishments and we need to get this part on the inside of the card. Let me show you how we're going to do that because it's really simple. You're going to open the card like so. You're going to take your white stamped and decorated hexagon and turn it over. And you're going to lay it right up against the black hexagon, okay? Then you're going to move it away a smidge. See, I have slid it to the right just a smidge. So you can see I have black cardstock showing around my white hexagon. Hold that into place. Take your adhesive, put it on the white, and then all you're going to do is close your card. This is going to position that hexagon in exactly the right place that you wanted it. Okay, it's completely hidden when the card is shut, and when you open the card, it's completely in the position that you were hoping. Let's throw our little rhinestones on there, and we'll wrap up this project. There are probably a number of good choices. I just chose just the basic rhinestone gems, and it looks like I'm kind of down to all one size. So if you have large and small, you could do a combination. I only have the small, so I'm going to position 2 of them down here on the black. And on the third one, you can choose on the black again up here, or I'm going to add it to my speech bubble, like so. And look at what an amazing, adorable little interactive card that you've created. I'm just so in love with this. Now, I am in the process of finishing this in the other color combination, which is adorable. My wobbles are being delivered from Amazon today. This was literally my last wobble. So Papa Bear is just sitting on there with a temporary piece of tape, but I wanted to show you how cute it was in this color. On this one, I also added a few of those little honeycomb stamps onto the front. So if you like that, you can add that. And that, my friends, are our 3 projects. Stamp Club April 2025 is a wrap. We have this one, we have this, and of course we have our darling little treat containers. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sticking with this video to the very end. I'm glad that you got to do that and learn all the fun tips and tricks that I have for you today. Again, if you're interested in participating with me and really getting involved, just contact me and I will be happy to get right back to you. Any comments or questions that you leave for me on this video, I read and I answer them all. So please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're getting ready to place your Stampin' Up! Order, consider putting that Mint to Be bundle on your next order. You can see how many wonderful and creative things you can do with it. And perhaps if you already own Be My Valentine, it'll be a good complimentary set of products to go with it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy stamping.